Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Horror Corner, or welcome if you're new to my channel. Glad to have you here. Make sure you hit the subscribe button either way if you haven't already. If you're not subscribed to my channel, it would really help me out. Um, so we're going to kick off, well, not kick off, but we're going to take a look at the first movie in our Leprechaun horror franchise series here for the month of March 2025. And of course, the first seven movies I have as part of this Blu-ray digital seven film collection. So Leprechaun from 1993. Let's go ahead and talk about it now that we're in March, the month of St. Patrick's Day. Leprechaun is a 1993 American comedy horror film written and directed by Mark Jones and starring Warwick Davis in the title role, with Jennifer Aniston supporting. Davis plays a vengeful leprechaun who believes a family has stolen his pot of gold. As he haunts them, they attempt to locate his gold to mollify him. Originally intended as a straight horror, Davis injected humor into the role, and reshoots added increased gore to appeal to older audiences. So that's just a little tidbit there. So in 1983, Dan O'Grady returns to his home in North Dakota to his native from a trip to his native Ireland, where he has stolen a leprechaun's pot of gold. After burying the gold, discovers that the leprechaun has followed him home and murdered his wife. O'Grady uses a four-leaf clover to suppress the leprechaun's powers and trap him inside a crate. Before he can burn him, the leprechaun makes O'Grady suffer a stroke. 10 years later, J.D. Redding and his teenage daughter Tori rent the O'Grady farmhouse for the summer. Contract workers Nathan Murphy, his 10-year-old brother Alex, and their dim-witted friend Ozzie Jones help repaint the farmhouse. In the basement, Ozzie hears the leprechaun's cry for help and mistakes him for a child. He brushes the clover off the crate, freeing the leprechaun. After failing to convince the others that he met a leprechaun, Ozzie spots a rainbow and chases it, believing there to be gold at the end. Alex accompanies him, fearing that Ozzie might hurt himself. A bag of 100 gold coins appears before Ozzie. After Ozzie tests the gold and accidentally swallows a coin, they stash it in an old well and plot to keep it for themselves, hoping to fix Ozzie's brain. So yeah, that's the setup and the premise. As far as the cast goes here, we have Warwick Davis as the Leprechaun, Jennifer Aniston as Tori Redding, Ken Olant as Nathan Murphy, Mark Holton as Ozzie Jones, Robert High Gorman as Alex Murphy, David Permenter as Deputy Trippett, William Newman as Sheriff Roy Cronin, and Shay Duffin as Dan O'Grady. So yeah, that's the setup, the premise, and the cast for the original Leprechaun from 1993 as part of the seven horror Blu-ray pack. Um, I enjoyed this movie for what it is. I think it's pretty good. I really do. And it's not a mainstream movie. It's very much a B horror movie, kind of a B slasher movie. So let's just go ahead and get into my thoughts about this movie. So the pros, the things that I like about this movie, you got to start with Warwick Davis, who I had a feeling I was going to like. As I said in my intro videos, I'm a big fan of his from. I know he did some work on Return of the Jedi back when he was a lot younger, but then also the Harry Potter series. I like him and everything I've seen him in. But Warwick Davis is the best part of this movie, playing the Leprechaun. He just brings so much to this role beyond being the right size for a Leprechaun. He also brings a lot of energy, a lot of fun to this titular killer character, from his dialogue and what he says to his facial expressions and just the overall charm and wit that he has in this character. I really think it makes the movie, to be honest with you. I don't think if you would have had a kid in there or somebody else or like a just a puppet, it wouldn't have worked. It really wouldn't have worked. I think Warwick Davis makes this movie work. You believe him as a leprechaun. He sounds like a leprechaun. He looks like a leprechaun. I also like the look of him as well. How they kind of give him a sort of a leprechaun's makeup, but then make it a little bit more crude and evil looking in a way too. A good facial makeup, practical makeup effects there. But yeah, Warwick Davis, just love him in this role. I don't know how he'll be in the other movies, but in this first movie, I really did enjoy him in this role, and I think he's the best part of the movie. I like the fact that the movie uses leprechaun lore as we know it with a horror twist on it. From having the four leaf clover to the leprechaun's pot of gold at the end of a rainbow. Um, to shoe shining, which I thought was funny. One of the funnier parts of the movie is he has to shine shoes. All those things that we've kind of come to know for leprechauns, they it sort of plays in here, and the fact that he's after these people because he feels like they stole his pot of gold, and that's sort of the horror twist that he doesn't just ask it back or try to trick them. He actually kills people for it. That's the horror element to it. But yeah, I just think it's fun and it works, and it kind of makes the viewer sort of relate a little bit more with this being a Leprechaun movie. Um, Within this horror comedy context, I think it's a good blend there with having that lore. I thought the movie stuck a pretty good balance in tone between the wit and humor and some of the more dark, evil elements of the movie, which I have a feeling is going to go away as we go on in this series from what I've heard. But in this first movie, I thought, I'm not saying the movie's scary. There's not really any parts that are scary, but you can tell they strike a pretty good balance between the more some more levity kind of moments, lighter moments, and humor, um, with some pretty dark and twisted sort of moments in the movie. So that's one thing that sort of stood out to me. Creepy moments throughout the movie, and does a good job of riding that line of comedy and not necessarily horror, but comedy and darker moments, I guess is a better way to say it. Some of the kills were fun and somewhat bloody and gory, especially for a B kind of slasher movie from the 90s. I wasn't expecting that as much, but I did enjoy it. I'm not saying it's an overly gory movie, but there is gore involved. There is blood with some of the kills here. Um, the acting's pretty decent overall. Again, especially for considering this is a B horror slasher movie, I felt that all the main characters here were played pretty well by the actors here. Of course, most people are gonna remember this movie for Jennifer Aniston being sort of her first. I don't know if it's her very first acting role ever, but like her first movie role right before Friends. I've never been overly enamored with Jennifer Aniston as an actress personally. I She's fine. She's kind of whatever, but I've never had sort of been on that mountain of thinking she's the greatest thing since sliced bread, America's Sweetheart, and all that. I've just never really seen that, but she's fine in this movie. Kind of a typical Jennifer Aniston performance. Warwick Davis, I already talked about, is awesome, and the other characters, I thought were fine. They do good for this kind of movie, and this time that it was made in the early '90s. So, um, yeah, I felt the characters were played by the actors pretty well here. Pretty good death sequence for the leprechaun at the end that I enjoy, where he sort of melts into a skeletal version of himself. Good practical makeup and gore effects there that I really noticed and liked. I like the setting of this farmhouse as well that most of the movie takes place within. You don't really think of a leprechaun with a farmhouse, but it works for this movie. Leprechaun's able to take some things from the farmhouse to use for his benefit, and it just kind of has some good locations and areas where this big battle takes place between the main characters and the leprechaun. I think it adds some fun and atmosphere through the movie by having this setting here. Overall, I mean, this movie's just dumb fun, charming and enjoyable kind of movie with some good gore and a great killer, a great portrayal of a killer by Warwick Davis. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a rewatchable movie. It's a fun movie. You just can't go into it with totally high horror expectations. But as I said, I think they strike a pretty good balance. I think this movie works more than it doesn't. So those are the pros that I have for Leprechaun from 1993. As far as cons go, some of the effects where Leprechaun uses his leprechaun powers, like where he's zapping things from his fingertips, they don't really hold up the best. They're kind of outdated. They don't look great. Some of the humor is a bit outdated as well, and it didn't land for me. There were humorous moments that I did chuckle at, especially when he's going through the house and kind of ransacking it, and he goes into the cereal cupboard and runs into a box of Lucky Charms. And at first he's interested. He takes he bites or he eats a little bit of it and he spits it out. I thought that was kind of good humor. And there's some other jokes that land, but there's also a lot that doesn't land for me. And then, of course, you have your typical bad character decisions and reactions that are definitely present here. The cop comes to mind that pulls him over in his little go kart. For some reason, he runs into the woods instead of running into his car where the keys are already in the ignition. And then the character of Nathan as well. Talk about a delayed reaction with shooting. There's one sequence where Leprechaun goes back and forth through like a hallway doorway. And I mean, Nathan's basically shooting like 5 seconds after he already goes by. It's like, dude, you're wasting your ammo. Um, and then at the very end of the movie, I could have done without. I understand why they did it because they were hoping and obviously succeeded in setting up a sequel. But um, when you hear Leprechaun's voice saying I'll be back" and all that kind of stuff, it's like, that wasn't my favorite part of the movie. I thought they could have just ended it by showing the well having been blown up and stuff. You still could have had a sequel. You don't need to actually, tell us in voiceover, actually telestrate that. So, again, not a lot of cons, but just a few things that bugged me. But overall, guys, for this kind of movie, I thought the first Leprechaun from 1993 was a fun watch, and I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. So 7.5 out of 10 for Leprechaun from 1993, the original. Please like this video, hit the little notification bell, and subscribe to my channel. As I said earlier, if you haven't already, so you don't miss any of my upcoming reviews for this series. We still have 7 more movies to review, plus my ranking at the end of March. And you also don't want to miss as I get back into my 1981 horror series. So in April here. So with all that being said, I hope you're doing well. I hope you're enjoying this series for March here. But as always, stay scared. Bye.